Hello and happy Wednesday. I'm Beverly Hosford. I'm here with my friend Erin Nitschke, and we are live with the National Federation of Professional Trainers, a certification organization that's been around since the 80s, a family-owned and operated company that also does continuing education for personal trainers. And we're live every Wednesday, and we've been talking for quite a while now about success and business strategies. And so this week we're actually going to dive into a little bit of a different topic, which we'll get onto in a moment. It's all about retention. How are you doing today, Erin?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. We just got some little shoes for the little guy. I mean,
love them.
I got them from a mama in town, secondhand, and yeah, we've been looking around for shoes because he's starting to walk. And the reason I've got these to show you is because I had asked for your advice about this, as being a little bit more of a veteran mama that you are. But I wanted to show them to you, and also I'm excited because they're flexible. So yeah. They're flexible, and this is something that a lot of parents now, I feel like they're looking for flexible shoes for their kids because they're like, oh, their feet need to learn to adapt to the ground. And I just wonder, like, when does that get lost in that we stop thinking about that for ourselves? Because I don't feel like our feet ever really should be locked in a shoe that doesn't allow mobility. And that was something that I heard a lot about from Stacey Lee Krause at the IDEA convention this summer. She's all about barefoot training and training your feet. And she reminded me that there's 31 joints in the feet. And so I'm just super excited that they make kids' shoes that are so flexible. What kind of shoes do you have for your daughter?
She has little tennis shoes like that. And she prefers to be barefoot, though. That child, even when she will go running outside, she'll take off out of the slider and hit the deck and just go running. And I'm like, wait, we need some shoes. But yeah, I will say when she was like 5 months old, because all of my friends know I have this fetish with high heels. So you talk about shoes that have no mobility. Let's talk about that. They truly don't. But I found these shoes that were from peeweepumps.com, and they're like little heels for babies. I mean, they're like flexible, rubbery type things, but she's got those on in her 5-month baby pictures.
Oh my gosh, so sweet. Yeah, doesn't that say something? Like, kids don't want to wear shoes. They don't like to wear shoes. And we have to wear shoes in the environment that we live in. I mean, I guess we don't necessarily have to, but I just think that it's so important. And yeah, you should check out the Willpower Method with Stacey Lee Krause if you want to learn more about the feet. She is, and me being an anatomy teacher, to say that she is like the expert with feet and foot anatomy says a lot. Like, she knows it way better than I do. So yeah, if you just joined us, I'm just like, it's worth it to have a baby just to have these cute little
I know, I love their little tiny things.
So we're just talking about shoes real quick as we get started. I see we've got a bunch of viewers here already. Angie says, I love secondhand thrift store. Yeah, I love Bozeman. It's a small enough community that there's a Facebook group here that you can go in and get secondhand from other moms. And the mom that I got them from, I just met her today, and I went over to her house this morning, and her son is 9 months older than mine. So I was like, keep in touch with me as he grows out of things.
Yes. I will take
somebody we haven't heard from before. Cute. Are you talking about my friend Erin here, or the shoes?
Most likely the shoes. They are
likely. Or the baby, or the dog around. So today we're going to talk about retention. And the reason this topic came up is because if you've been following our Facebook Live show, we've been talking about interviewing and how to be successful and how to have mentors and all of these things that are super important to run a good business, but none of them matter. None of them matter if you don't get one thing. And that one thing is something we've been hearing about a lot from, we have a lot of trainers at NFPT that have been with us for 25 to 30 years. And you can check out on our blog, and if Angie or Billy are here, maybe you could throw it up, the trainer spotlight section of our blog. If you could put it in the comments for us, that'd be awesome. We have some trainers that we've interviewed recently, and they all keep saying this one thing, that you need to get results. You have to get results. It doesn't matter how pretty you are, how in shape you are, what your website looks like, if you're not getting results. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Erin, to tell us what results are. What does that even mean?
So I think the way that we define results is different for every client that comes to us. Every client is going to have a different goal. And so it's up to the trainer to be able to expand upon that goal and find out really what they're getting at. So for some, it's going to be weight loss. For some, it's going to simply be maybe they've been forced to come to a trainer because of insurance reasons or because their doctor's like, you can either choose to be active or you can meet your maker early. And so every goal, every client is going to come with something different. And so starting at that individual level, kind of that microscopic level, the microcosm is looking at what does the client want? What do they need? It's not about what the trainer wants them to accomplish. It's about, okay, getting from the basics to that goal. And that's going to look different for every person. Every person's not going to want to achieve the same thing. There might be similarities across the group, especially if you are somebody that might specialize in a certain niche or you have a certain type of programming that you specialize in. But overall, you're going to see the gamut from people that are interested in maybe they want to train for their first 5K, or they want to try training for a marathon, or it's the new mom that just simply wants to get a little bit more energy and kind of find her footing again. So it's very individualized. The results, you can't narrowly define it across the board. You can't make a sweeping generalization about it because it is so different for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. You've got to know what that client's results, what their intention is, and that the results can change, or what they want for their results or what they want for their goals can change. Like they might come in and have a certain goal in mind and then later on decide that it's something different. And that's what we talked about. We've talked about how you've got to ask good questions and follow up. And we just had a blog post this week about some questions to ask. And I saw you've got one coming up that also talks about questions to ask to find out, what it is that somebody is trying to achieve and what they want.
Yes.
And what their goals are. So yeah, there's all different kinds of results. And then how do we get those results? It's that's the whole second part. So why don't we take someone as an example, one of your people, like you've got a new mom. Yep. We were just talking about babies. And she wants to get back in shape after postpartum. It seems like a new mom's goals would change quite often. And so how do we go about, so she says, I want to do X, Y, Z. I want my abs back. I want
Don't we all?
I want to not be hunched over all the time because I'm holding the baby all the time. And so she's got these goals that she starts out with. And so then I think one of the most important things about results is how do you know that you've gotten the results? Like, how do you show her? Because if you ever notice that people have amnesia where it's you're training them and then months later, they're like, just nothing has happened. And you're like, yes, a lot has actually happened in the last, and they're like, I'm just not seeing any results. And you're like, wait a second. So I always think about fitness assessments as a way to measure and measure.
I think inherently we have to have benchmarks. We have to have something to be able to look back on and help people realize how far they've come. And I think a fitness assessment, in the fitness industry, there's specific assessments you can do, but I think you can take it a step further and you can ask other questions. You can evaluate what's your energy level like? How are you feeling emotionally and mentally? Kind of looking at it through a holistic lens, because then those are also measurements. They're not directly measurable necessarily. It's not like you can take a tape measure and measure someone's mental health and be like, oh, you were here 6 months ago and now you're here. It's more of that kind of organic, open-ended conversation that you have, but that's still some sort of measurement. That's still some sort of qualitative data that's going to help you demonstrate to your client that they've achieved certain results along their journey. But I think fitness assessments are crucial because, and I see a lot of times, at least in my experience, and I get this with students too, I want to weigh a certain amount. And I try to steer them towards more of a holistic perspective in terms of, okay, How do your clothes fit? How's your energy feel? How are you, are you able to focus? Do you sleep better? That kind of a thing, because we can't always go on weight. What the scale says is not necessarily a result. It's certainly something that we can measure. Absolutely, we can measure it. But what's it really measuring? It's like your relationship with gravity is really what it's telling us more than anything, versus you have, here's your fat mass to lean mass. So I think if you're going to do those fitness assessments, and you need to make sure you have a variety that demonstrates something a little more than, oh, there's a 2-pound weight loss, or God forbid, there's a 2-pound weight gain. What's that loss or gain really mean? And so you have to find a way, I think, to translate it so that it makes sense to your client.
Yeah, because I think fitness assessments can be terrifying sometimes.
Oh, yes.
You take all these assessments, and then the person is all excited, and they're like, yeah, I can't wait to make changes. And then you go to do the follow-up in 6 weeks, and sometimes that first 6 weeks you see results, and then another 6 weeks goes by and you don't, and you're like, and I know, like, sometimes I'd be holding my breath, like, oh my gosh, please let something have changed. And so I think it can be great to, use a mood inventory or an energy level inventory or something like that, or just to have regular conversations with your client and remind them where they came from, because I even know the most recent example I have is, I gave birth almost a year ago, and I went from waking up 8 or 9 times a night down to now, like, I wake up once or twice because of, like, the dog or my husband, and I'm just like, I got a terrible night's sleep. And it's like, hey, do you remember what a terrible night's sleep really is, Bev? It's way worse than that. And I think we just we very easily become complacent, and we just need that reminder of where we came from sometimes. But then other times, like with clients, I feel like, I was thinking about this today, if they're not happy, at the end of the day, if they're not happy, like, you can't talk them into the fact that, like, no, hey, like, you're getting value from what I'm doing. If they don't see the value, then they don't see the value. But if they have the body that they wanted to get, or they're feeling the way they want to feel, or they're achieving the goals they want to achieve, then generally they should be happy. And sometimes I feel like fitness assessments and tools like that can help you remind them that they are getting somewhere.
Yes, but they're not necessarily the end all be all. And like you said, at the end of the day, if they're just not happy, there's not a lot you can do on your end if it's something that is out of your control. As trainers and health coaches, we don't spend 24 hours a day with our clients. So we don't really know what goes on outside of it. We also don't know, the genetic component. We're not doctors. We don't know that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of other factors and variables that I think require, especially now as the landscape of healthcare continues to change, I think it increases, I'll say, the responsibility of trainers to broaden their knowledge a little bit and kind of get a greater understanding of what can some of those other internal components or components that I don't directly measure, how are those playing a key role here? Certainly there's hormonal considerations, there's medication, there's all of those things. So learning to kind of think all around versus, well, we're working out, we've increased our workouts, we're burning more calories, and I've backed off on caloric intake, but I'm not seeing results. Mm-hmm. Well, the problem might not be there. it truly might not be. And so not taking such a myopic view at what the cause is for why the results may not be coming to fruition, I think is a more responsible approach than if you were to just say, okay, it's limited to these 2 things. Not really. You've got to have an idea of what the other factors are. And so I think that means helping educate yourself, but then also talking to your clients about other things.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that we have to be accountable first for what we do as personal trainers. We've got to make sure that we are knowledgeable, we have our methods down, and that's where a mentor can come in really handy. Is if you're working with somebody new, you can give that mentor a call and say, I have this new client, I'm nervous, could you help me come up with a plan, or help me come up with, or maybe you've worked with them 3 or 4 times and nothing is changing, and you could call that mentor up. And then I think once you've covered all your bases as a personal trainer in your scope of practice with lifting weights, doing cardio, maybe doing a food journal, and talking to them about sleep and just talking to them about some of the issues that are maybe outside of your scope of practice for coaching, but that you can find out if there's a gap there. And then after you've covered all your bases as a trainer, which there's a lot of bases to cover, then you can reach out. And that's where having a network of people is really important. Having a medical doctor, a naturopath, maybe. I know that I've seen some really great results in my own body working with a naturopath and having her tweak, some different things with like a supplement or making suggestions about how I'm doing things that a traditional doctor doesn't always see. Like they can do some different blood tests to find out what's going on. Like you said, hormonally, like after I gave birth, I definitely had some levels in my body that were out of whack. And that's not something a personal trainer can fix. It's not something they can do. But then having a nutritionist on board and maybe a massage therapist or someone that can help people relax and lower their stress levels. And even as I'm learning about this whole world of sleep coaching, sleeping, there are people out there who will coach you on your sleep and help you get on a better rhythm and better routine. Just like there's a good and a bad time of day to exercise for some people, there's a good and a bad time to go to sleep at night for some people. So I think having a strong referral network is huge for getting results, because you can send people out to that person to get help, and then they hopefully will come back to you to keep on working out.
Absolutely. And I think establishing that referral network is so much more critical than just focusing on making your business card look pretty in your marketing scheme. That's all great. Absolutely, you need that. But if you don't have anybody to help you problem solve, chances are the results will be limited.
Yeah.
On the occasion that you get somebody that, is a genetic anomaly and they just respond to everything really well, which is not going to happen, period. I mean, it's very rare that's going to happen.
That does happen, though. You get these people, and I want to make sure we're paying attention to our viewers. So Clark says, record keeping, jot down conversations, assessments, date them, get them out every few weeks and give feedback. Yeah, totally. Like, I love that you say keeping track of conversations. Like, even just, if you're not someone that remembers things readily, you could write down conversations you had. I used to do that sometimes. I'd make note of something important my client said or something emotionally, basically. Like if they're just feeling down about something that's going on at home or what they're eating, or maybe they're trying a new cleanse program. There's so many things going on outside the training session. Billy says, Billy, where do you find these quotes?
Is that what you do, Billy? It's just like Google great quotes and then throw them up.
In your head. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always be where you're at. You are at. Someone once said.
So true, though. It's kind of like that definition of insanity of doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So I do encourage definitely the record keeping. I think that's an awesome comment. It's more about the anecdotal evidence that you can gather in a training session than, this person completed 3 sets of 12, but they really struggled with this amount of weight, or, whatever you're going to record. Yeah. So absolutely, like making it translatable for them, and gathering that anecdotal evidence. And like you said, Bev, tracking comments, like if your client says something really critical is going on, make a note of it. And I always encourage my students, when we have our personal training project that they do, I always encourage them to, within a client chart, to have an anecdotal sheet, like beyond just the program for the day or the workout of the day or whatever it happens to be. You need to have an anecdotal record so you can, sloppily jot down things, but then go back and kind of ruminate over them and let those thoughts digest, and then type them up, date them, and give feedback. I think feedback is critical.
Yeah, getting the feedback from the client, definitely, because clients don't always tell you what's going on in their mind. Sometimes they just casually don't renew or they don't come back in. And so asking those questions, which I'll toss that blog up in here in the comments later. I wrote a blog about the questions you can ask a client, because we were talking last week, I think, or the week before, about how when you start with a new client, it's like an interview, and it's always an ongoing interview and an ongoing relationship. So checking in for feedback is really important. I totally agree with you. And I saw Meyer popped in. Hi, ladies. Hi, Myra. Do you have any questions for us today or thoughts?
Yes.
Let's see. Clark says, could be in a pretty fun format, a note, a letter, a postcard. Fun to get some affirmations in the mail. Huh.
I love that idea.
Yeah, what is he saying, or what's he saying exactly?
About the notes or the feedback that you get. You can format it in one way so it's not like this, just email or something like that. But yeah, I agree with you on that. It is an ongoing interview. Just because you gather the information initially doesn't mean that interview is concluded. I mean, every session you have with somebody, they should learn something new and you should learn something new about them that thus increases the ability to get those results and therefore retain them.
Yeah. It's just like any relationship, like the one you have with your partner, the one you have with your kids. You should always be trying to be on your best and to keep getting to know them and to keep. I remember reading advice once that says, like, always pretend you're on a first date with your partner. Like, always be curious. Let's see. Oh, Clark says to send a note to a client, a fun report card. Oh, I like that idea. So basically, like, sending them their results. Yeah. I used to do that sometimes. I would do an end of the year, like, holiday card for each of my clients, or sometimes a birthday card. And in those cards, I would write down some of the highlights from the year, some things that we worked on or some things that we were doing. Because a lot of my clients were very long term. I had some of them for over a decade. And when you have clients that long term, it can be hard sometimes for them to see results because they're in that maintenance phase of the trans-theoretical model. And it can be tough to show them anything's going on. And hopefully at that point they just realize that if without this, I don't stay in shape. So
right. Yeah. Absolutely. I love the report card idea. I think that's an awesome point. And I think too, on top of that, really celebrating your clients' successes, no matter how big or small. And that's why I always encourage, set some small short-term goals that are immediately achievable. And by immediate, I mean, a short time frame, not the end of the day, but something that is more achievable that ultimately leads to that long-term goal so that you can have those little milestones across that journey and then you can celebrate them. I mean, really make a big deal about it because we thrive on affirmations. We thrive on, attaboys and good jobs because that's, it's important because we sometimes don't always celebrate our own successes. And so it's really nice when we see somebody say, hey, you did such an awesome day or you did such an awesome job today. And I know that last whatever was really hard for you, but I'm really proud of how you pushed through and, that kind of a thing. Just making sure that you do celebrate not just the accomplishment, but their commitment to that. To that.
That's when I didn't know what else to say in a client card because maybe I have a few clients that would just do the same workout all the time and they were just happy maintaining. And I'm like, well, what do I write in here? And I would say, like, I admire your commitment. I admire your spirit. But while you were chatting, it brought me back to one of the interviews I did with one of our trainers who's like 80, I can't remember, 80 something years old. I interviewed a bunch of our NFPT has a collection of trainers who are like 70 and 80 years old. It's incredible. You should definitely read about them. I saw Angie put up the link in the blog, Beverly, and I'm still working on the one about Cal, but go check that out sometime, the trainer spotlights. But anyway, what I wanted to say was one of them, he told me like how he's Cal's is going to be coming up. He's a bodybuilder and he's won lots of world championships. And he said he always started people out on machines, really simple. And then he would progress them to free weights and then progress them to functional movement. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that new trainers can make sometimes is they pull out all the fun stuff right away in the first session. And I remember one time I met a trainer who said that was his sales technique. He's like, I want to overwhelm the person so that they feel like they can't train without me. And I think it's a clever sales technique, but I think that I liked Cal's strategy, not only because it's safer, just like Stacey Lee Krause, she's the one we talked about in the beginning. When she teaches barefoot running, she says it should take you an entire year to be able to run a mile or two that's how long it should take you. And people go out and they run 3 miles, right off the bat. And she says, you should start out with 10 minutes and then 15 minutes and then 20 minutes to have the proper form. And I think that a lot of new trainers often will want to jump into all that fun stuff, throw people on the BOSU, but realize that if you start out with the real simple exercises, not only are you going to train them more safely, you're always going to have something else to roll out and say, look, we progressed to this new machine. Look, we progressed to this new technique, and then work your way up. And I think that not only does it keep the client's mind entertained and interested, but it also, from an injury standpoint, I believe it's a safer way to go.
It absolutely is. And I think we can get a little gadget happy because, yeah, there's a lot of really fun and great things out there in the industry. But you pull someone in that is relatively new to exercise entirely, and you overwhelm them with all sorts of these gadgety kind of things, and you make them so sore that they don't really want to return.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be that. That's not the kind of result you want. That's not a positive result.
It's really not a result.
Yeah. So I think training the basics is so important, because then you might overlook a real simple muscle imbalance that you yourself can help train to fix and correct if you just jumping on all the really great stuff, and then you miss teaching about the base of support, you miss teaching about engaging the core, you miss teaching about all of those things, postural movements, if you just skip right over it and go to the really fun stuff. Injury will skyrocket. I guarantee it if you don't pay attention to some of those really basic and important initial moves.
Yeah, totally. So we've got some more. I like our interaction today. Clark says, when one of our MS clients finally did Greek dance, we celebrated, and it deserved a follow-up. Good stuff. Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. Yeah.
He's referring back to yeah, I think he's referring back to when you talked about the celebrating. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Billy, what about a results card of sorts? For every 10 sessions, they get one free. Yeah, that's a great retention strategy to keep people coming back in from the marketing standpoint. And that's where I want to come back to, is that we definitely, marketing and websites and all of that's really important, but it only works if you're actually getting the results. And April, you can't help, try to go out of your way to find other options, even if it means sending them to another professional. Yeah, totally. Yeah. You don't have to do it all. You do not have to do it all by yourself.
No, you don't. And I think that's a huge mistake to make. And I, as a teacher, an educator, and been one for 15 going on 16 years now, and I have a student that asks me a question that I truly don't know the answer to, I don't tell them some bogus answer. I'm like, that's a really thought-provoking question. I want to take some time to research it, and I'll get back to you. Because it's okay to admit that you don't know everything. Some days I wonder if I know anything. So, really, it depends. It's clear. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes to make, is to just not admit that, gosh, I don't know, or I'm stuck. And that's where having that network and sending them to somebody else can maybe help unlock part of that puzzle that you yourself can't see because you don't have that scope of practice. And that's okay. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you smart.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got some great tips here for retaining your clients that all center around getting results. We talked about the idea of what results are. You got to know first what the client expects, and then if you measure the results, then it's more easy to show them that they've gotten the results. And you've got to cover all your basics as a personal trainer, and use mentors when you need to. Go back to your NFPT training manual, get a continuing education class, call that mentor, and then beyond that, refer out to other people. I mean, there's multiple layers here to make sure that what you're doing inside of the session is working, because then all the marketing that you do, it just backs that up.
Yeah. And I think,
yeah, go ahead, Erin.
I think going back to what you said or reiterated about knowing what the client wants and needs, I think part of that is helping tease out the realistic expectations from the grandiose kind of inflated idea of what's going to happen. I've had clients in the past that are like, I've got this wedding in 6 weeks and I want to drop 50 pounds. Well, you're going to have to cut off a leg if you want to do that. I'm not going to do that. So it's about educating them about the realism associated with certain goals, you know, or like, you know, you get a client that comes in and wants to drop that immediate weight. So I'm going to do this low carb diet. And I've heard a lot of people lose weight really fast. Well, of course you do, because you're losing water too. I mean, that's how carbs are stored. So teaching them in a non-smart mouthy way.
You mean like the way you just
yeah.
you have to cut off your leg.
I mean, seriously, I've had a client like tell me this, and I'm all, okay, well, let's talk about how this might work and what the healthiest way to go about this is, you know, trying to reframe it, because I think that's one of the parts that makes people so frustrated is they come in with like this gigantic over the moon goal and then they don't reach it and they're like, my trainer sucks. She doesn't know anything. Well, did you take the time to educate them about how weight loss works or the science of the body, and not in such a way that you're teaching them a biology course? You're just teaching them about the functional component of physiology.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I've heard trainers complain a lot about clients like that. They come in with these lofty goals and yeah, you're thinking like, well, you're gonna have to cut off your leg for sure. But I think turning it back around to them, I love asking questions. And I know I've had probably some clients leave me because they don't like all my questions, but I would probably just say something like, hey, you know, do you feel like you'll be able to do that in the next six weeks? Like, do you feel like, you know, you have time for that? Like, how are you feeling about that? 50 pounds? And I think that's 50 pounds in 6 weeks. That's crazy. But I think you've got to be educated. There's no question. Personal training is not just about like showing off a nice body. You definitely have to be educated. And boy, I would love to have you in my back pocket if I was a trainer, where I could just pull out some information when I need it, because you are such a wealth of information. Sometimes you get stumped. Let's see. We're getting close to our 30-minute mark here. We've got a nice audience. If you're here and we haven't talked to you yet, say hello. You know, offer some advice about retention. If you have a question for us, like if you have a client that you're currently struggling with to get those results, or that you're afraid of losing, feel free to ask a question. Angie says affirmations are important. We need to thrive on them. Be the trainer that gives compliments. Yeah, we've been talking about that as part of it. And Clark agreed with us that indeed pacing is important. Yeah, I feel like that was really what started this topic, was just me hearing these trainers who have been in the field for 30 years or more, and they're telling me, when I ask them, what do new trainers need to know? Because that's who we serve. We love helping new trainers at NFPT. And they're like, you know what? The gym I work at, I see all these newer trainers, and not all of them, but they're just saying, I see these young guys, like they're doing exercises that are too tricky. They're doing things that are way too complicated, and they just need to go back to the basics and train the muscle groups and do what they're supposed to do, and not be talking about things that are outside their scope of practice, etc. So I love wisdom from people who've been at it longer than me. That's why I love doing those interviews. And I think that's so invaluable.
Yeah.
What else are you thinking, Erin? You got anything else to share?
Not really, other than just to piggyback on what you said about the wisdom. You know, that's something that you're not going to learn in a textbook. That's something you're not going to learn except anecdotally from people that have been there and made those errors and or observed those errors and maybe found a way to circumvent them in their own experience, their own career. So textbook knowledge is great. It's awesome. It serves a very important foundation for building those skills, establishing skills, but you have to go beyond that. And so I think it's important, as if you're a new trainer and you're working with other trainers, look for opportunities to learn from somebody else. Chances are they've been there. And if they're of that mentorship fabric, they will want to help you.
Yeah.
If they don't, just leave them alone. They're not working. Period. But yeah, I think it's wisdom you're not going to find in a book.
Yeah.
So pay attention to that value.
Yeah. And that's where I think doing internships is so valuable. That was something you wrote about recently, is how to get an internship. It's never too late to do an internship. You could be 2 years into your career and find someone you admire who's getting good results, who has lots of clients, and ask them if you can come and shadow them, help them clean up their gym, whatever. I don't feel like it's ever too late to do an internship or to go and watch how someone else is training. And as you said last week, even just attending a group fitness class and watching what they're doing in a group. You just go, if you're shy and don't want to be one-on-one with someone, you can go to a group class, sneak in there, see what they're doing. And especially if it's a popular class, it's guaranteed that instructor is probably getting results, and you could learn something from the way that they're structuring their class. And I was just reviewing a group fitness instructor manual recently, and in the manual they talk about the whole thing of starting with larger muscle groups and going to the smaller ones, like these basic principles that we can get away from in so-called functional training or whatever. It's like you just need to just go slow, take your time, and be consistent.
Right.
Consistency. Right. And that's what clients need to hear. There's no magic pill. It's just consistency, and you've got to be regular, and you've got to keep training. And if someone's not willing to do that, then maybe you need to take them off your schedule.
Yeah. It's I think the focus can get too much on the, getting the great body versus having the great relationship with your body. And I think that's part of the responsibility trainers have is educating that piece of it. And it's hard to do. Many of us don't have that good relationship yet, and we're working on it. But that is part of the reason why basics are so important is, establishing that great strength foundation. Yeah. And then up and being appreciative of just the fact that you have the ability to work out. You get to do that. And there are people that may not have that same luxury.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish more people loved their bodies for sure. But that's definitely, unfortunately, I think a lot of people go into a big box gym are looking to look a certain way. It's part of that culture. And so it's definitely important to decide where you want to train and what type of people you want to work with and what type of results you want to give people. Because I definitely had a really nice community of clients who valued what you're speaking about, like loving their body, taking care of it, not getting injured. And it took time to cultivate those people because there's not as many of them, but they're out there and they don't want to get hurt, and they want to work with someone who has really good anatomy knowledge and physiology knowledge. And so you got to decide what you want to do. And if you like the whole, like how your body looks and physique, then you can definitely cultivate clients around that too, and do it in a healthy way as well, and help them to cultivate a well-rounded mindset and give them the body they want.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about, what are you about, first of all? And I think you have to know that in order to really try to get results with people. You have to know what you're willing to, what's your philosophy, what are your strengths?
Yeah, totally. Sweet. Well, that about wraps it up. If anyone else has any questions for us, that was a big topic. We thought we might do a few shows on it, but I think we covered a lot of it. If any of you have any questions about that or specific like I said, if you have a case that you would like us to talk about on a future show, we're always happy to do that. If you have somebody you'd like us to help you troubleshoot, I still have Clark's comments up here. I'm trying to be better at looking at only one spot on the screen. There's so much going on here with the comments.
It's overwhelming.
So we've got a few topics for next week. If anybody has any input, we've been talking about maybe addressing the alcohol and fitness trends. When you talk about results, like, man, that is one that I wonder about. How are we getting results when we're drinking after we exercise? Yeah. I don't know. But we can talk about that next week. What else were we talking about? There's something with feedback. Let me take a look here.
I was going to say the alcohol and fitness, like that kind of like niche culture is one thing we've been focusing on. But yeah, we have so many topics that we're like, oh, this could be a show that it's hard.
Yeah, we got the rotator cuff and
yep.
We want to maybe hit one of those topics about touching, like when is touching okay as a trainer? Because we were chatting about that. So if nobody has any, does anybody care what we talk about next week? Let us know. Otherwise, we'll just roll forward. Maybe we'll jump into the alcohol topic because it's not one, and we'll kind of go from there. So, well, thanks for joining us today, everybody. We're glad you were here. If you liked this show and found it helpful, please share it with other people. We would love you to help us get the word out about it. We'd like all of our blabbing to be
to result in something.
Yeah. We'd like it to be beneficial for a wider audience. So please share it. You can subscribe to this show and sorry, I just lost my train of thought. You can subscribe to the show and get updates when we go live, but we do go live every Wednesday, 11:30 Mountain Time, which is 1:30 Eastern Time, and it's obviously lunchtime for this woman.
Or nap time, one of the two.
Or nap time, one of those. And yeah, we'll see you next week. So thanks for being here with us.
Yes, great comments. Thanks, everyone.